Good morning, followers. I hope you're all having a fantastic day. I'm the King of Uncool, and I hope you're all happy to be back. We're here with episode 3 of the Fairy Tale Wiki Twitter project, and today we've got our special guest. She's a fairy tale fan, much like any other. She's an avid video gamer and also a future streamer. Say hello to Alika Z. Alika, how are you doing today?
I'm doing very well, thank you. How about yourself?
It is Valentine's Day as of today, and being a single individual such as myself, I have no significant plans, so to speak of, but I'm sure that's something a lot of people who are listening to this will be able to relate to.
I'm pretty single myself, so I don't have any great plans today either.
Well, we have one thing that we're doing today, and that's why we're here, so let's just get right into it. You're a fairy tale fan, so how did that get started for you?
Yeah, so I'm a relatively a newcomer to the fandom. I got into it like 3 years ago. I was going through a really tough time emotionally, just down in the dumps, very depressed, and going through some existential angst. And I was going through different animes that I potentially wanted to watch. And I came across Fairy Tale. I had heard about it, and I was skeptical. I had thought, okay, this has a lot of hype. I don't know if it's going to live up to it or if it's really something I'm going to enjoy. But I started it and instantly fell in love. I just, from episode one, got hooked and just binged it. And it lifted me right out of what I was going through. It was just such an amazing series. It made me cry, it made me laugh, it made me, all a wide emotional range of feelings.
So when did you actually get into the fairy tale series timeline-wise?
Yeah, 3, 4 years ago. It's pretty recent.
Yeah, that is fairly recent, and there was already a lot of fairy tale content that was out at that time. Yeah, the anime had, depending on which month you're talking about, maybe been on hiatus or maybe going close to it, whereas the manga was coming close to an end. So how did you find that kind of climb? Because it was already, quite an extensive series at that point.
Yeah, I didn't find it too intimidating. I was actually so happy that there was so much of it out that I didn't have to like wait every day for the next episode or like wait a week for the next episode like I do now for like My Hero Academia. And I had been used to longer anime. So like the very first anime I ever saw was Dragon Ball, and that was so long. And same with DBZ and Inuyasha, Yu Yu Hakusho, some of the other ones. So I wasn't too intimidated by the length.
Yeah, I think that's interesting because I think length is something that really holds people back from making a full-time commitment when it comes to especially shonen anime like Fairy Tail or Naruto or Bleach or whatever else that you can really think of. So when it does come to Fairy Tail, what was it that really appealed to you the most?
What really appealed to me was the multi-dimensional aspect of the characters. They were all very multifaceted, very just not a lot of shonen anime. The characters have very little development throughout the series, but that was so different in Fairy Tale. Each character sort of grew and became more than they were in the beginning. And another thing I really liked was sort of the gender balance of characters. So the main characters were Lucy and Urza and Gray and Natsu. So it had like this gender balance that you don't see in a lot of shonen anime, which I really liked.
That is true. So what were some other aspects of the series that were, getting you into it?
Yeah, so as someone who has a background in psychology, I actually really enjoyed the range of emotions that the characters went through. Like, for instance, throughout the series, we see Gray grappling with his guilt and his sort of survivor's guilt almost for having. He feels responsible for the people he loves just dying around him. And I think that sort of growth throughout the series is just really interesting for me. And then we have Urza, who like shows herself as being this strong and rock-like figure, but in reality, it's that there's this armor around her heart because she's so heartbroken from her past. And then we have Lucy, who puts on a smile and tries to be like the light of the group, but she's also struggling with, her past, losing her mother and her rocky relationship with her father. And I just really like, and Natsu again, like his sort of personal quest to find his dad, but also like, find himself through the process. So I really enjoyed all that range of emotions that you see, and not just in the main characters either, but like the guild mates in general. They're all have their own story and have their own emotions that they go through. So I really enjoyed that.
Yeah, that's quite a lot to really take in when you think about how long Fairy Tail's gone and what the characters have gone through. So now I'd just like to ask you a couple other aspects of the series that aren't as appealing to you. What is it you dislike about Fairy Tail?
Yeah, so I'd say I think there was certain times that the story narrative wasn't as strong as it was in the beginning. I think towards the end, or like especially like the newer season, I think it was a bit more rushed, and it didn't have the nuances that it had throughout the series. Like what I really liked about the series is that you something would happen in an earlier season, and then that event would come back to be important later on, and you had to pay attention, and it gave depth to the series, but we didn't see as much as of that later on.
Yeah, that's definitely something I often hear that people are, really excited when a fairy tale arc starts, that it's always exciting at the beginning because something cool is happening, it's unique, and it looks like it's going to build up to something, but the end is often quite rushed, cliche, and oftentimes anticlimactic. And you kind of feel cheated by the end of it because you invested all this time and you're just very unsatisfied with the payoff. But that's definitely something you can say that fairy tales lag behind. So in some cases, I understand it. In some cases, you kind of just have to let it go. But is there anything else you'd like to talk about in that regard?
No, yeah, I actually I'm just a little biased because it's my favorite series, so I find it hard to be critical of it. But no, I definitely think that there are aspects that are rushed, and I'm definitely not a fan of the non-canon arcs in the anime. They're not that good.
I don't think there's many people who are fans of those non-canon arcs because that's just a staple of any shonen, unfortunately. Although when we come to other series, you briefly mentioned Dragon Ball and Yu Yu Hakusho. So what are some of your other favorite anime?
Ooh, that's tough. Yeah, I have a lot. So I like the Dragon Ball series, all of it, like Dragon Ball Z, Dragon Ball Super. It's very nostalgic. Like I can be hypercritical about its aspects, but I don't really like gaze deep into its psychology and its story aspects and its characters. It's just something I've grown up with, so the nostalgia aspect is really strong. And I love Vegeta. He's just wonderful. And then other animes that I really like. There's one that's not very well known, but I think it's really good. It's called Death Parade. I love My Hero Academia, of course. I'm a big fan. I've been watching it throughout. Let's see. I want to get into Black Clover because I've heard it's a lot like Fairy Tale, but I haven't taken that dive yet. I'm looking forward to doing that. And let's see. I like Wolf's Rain. That's an older one as well. Samurai Champloo, Bakano. So there's a lot of anime I'm really into.
Yeah, you even mentioned Death Parade. I actually did watch it during its original release several years ago, and I certainly do like it myself. So I'm glad to meet a fellow fan.
Yeah, it's really good.
But yeah, speaking of fans, you mentioned something about fans and the work that they do that you wanted to talk about relating to fairy tale fan fiction.
Yeah, actually, I'm a big fan of reading fan fictions. There's one author who I think is amazing, and I hope she doesn't get embarrassed by me mentioning her. Her name's Caitlin Corvus, but on fan fiction she goes by Freya B, and she does amazing fairy tale fan fictions. And she's trying to be an independent author now, so she's doing like original works on Patreon and on Wattpad. So she's really good, and I'm glad to be giving her a shout out.
Well, this is what this is all about, is bringing the fairy tale community closer together. So, Caitlin, if you're listening to this, we hope you have a good day. And if you're ever interested in being on Fairy Tale Wiki's Twitter Talk project, you're welcome to sign up with our application form that you can find on our Twitter profile. So, when it comes to fairy tale, other media, what kind of other interests do you have relating to, cosplay, conventions, art?
Yeah, so as I said, I'm an avid gamer, so I love going to different conventions, anime conventions, gaming conventions. I was actually just at Anime LA, had a great time. I interviewed a bunch of people. Those videos are not up yet, but hopefully, when my team goes through editing them, I'll post the link for you guys. And actually got roped into being the photographer for the fairy tale cosplay meetup. It's totally on accident. I was passing by, and I was like, "Oh, I had no idea there's a fairy tale cosplay going on." And they're like, "Yeah, we would like another photographer. Can you take some professional photos for us?" And I'm like, "Sure, I would love that." So I did that, and I interviewed a Jalal cosplayer. Actually, I was doing a project with Anime for Humanity, who I'll mention more later on. But yeah, I was going around interviewing cosplayers about what they like about conventions, what do they like about cosplaying, how does it make them feel, and things like that. Um, I've cosplayed a few times myself. It's definitely like a lot of work. I'm hoping, like, I've cosplayed as Urza because I haven't mentioned this yet, but Urza is my favorite character in Fairy Tale, and that's why my handle in places such as Twitch and Discord is Titania Alika. That's because of her. She's just an inspiration to me, and so I've cosplayed as her. I've cosplayed as Elizabeth from Bioshock Infinite. I've cosplayed as like a Fallout character, like a post-apocalyptic person. I even did a post-apocalyptic version of Urza. That was really fun. I wore an eye patch because in that version she loses her eye. I kind of made that up, and yeah, so cosplaying is really great, and I go to a lot of conventions. I'm actually going this month to Vegas to Level Up Expo. I'm hoping to meet up with Monica Rial and Colin Clinkenbeard and some great voice actors. So I'm really excited about that. And yeah, I get involved in different fandoms. So I, watch a lot of anime. So I sometimes host like anime watch parties and like gaming nights, a lot of board gaming, a lot of video games. So I'm a very social person. I don't know if you can tell, but I love meeting new people. I love, just hosting events. I joined a big group here called Bay Area Anime and Gaming. And they're this like massive meetup of people in California and the Bay Area that love anime, love gaming, and we do like all kinds of crazy events. We even did like an archery event. So yeah, it's I keep busy.
Yeah, it definitely sounds like you keep busy and are a very social person. That's generally the impression I've been getting throughout our talk, but I think that's great. I really personally am a fan of how anime and these more niche hobbies can bring people together. So if that's what they're doing, then I'm entirely for it. I mean, why wouldn't I be? But as you mentioned, you have your Anime for Humanity project, which is something you work on. So do you want to tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, so Anime for Humanity is a nonprofit that I work with. I run their social media and do content for them. They're great. They started a few years ago in like 2017. We're relatively new. We go to conventions and others places, and we give out free anime therapy kits, which consist of like resources, great anime recommendations, stigma-free anime. And the purpose of the nonprofit is to break the stigma surrounding mental illness and mental health issues through anime, cosplay, and video games. So we're also setting up a vibrant streaming community right now. So if anyone is interested in joining, the application is on our Twitter. We're looking for people who want to be part of a charity stream. Um, and yeah, it's a really good project. I recently wrote an article about like self care after cons because I know a lot of people get really depressed and feel low after a convention because there's just so much excitement and adrenaline going on. And then there's like a crash. So I wrote an article about it and we have a pamphlet about it. So yeah, I help out a lot through that community, and we have a really vibrant Discord community. So feel free to join whoever is interested. We talk about anime, we talk about gaming, we talk about our lives. If you're going through a hard time, we have like a section for, support, so you could just feel supported by people who are part of the anime and gaming community, and it's a really great place to just connect with others and feel like cared about and loved. So that's Anime for Humanity.
So how did you get involved in this project originally?
I just came online and I thought, oh, this is really cool. And then I joined their Discord. I wasn't very active in the beginning. I kind of was like a sideliner, just hanging out in the Discord channel. But as like a year went by, and I went through a really tough time where I went through a really bad breakup and lost all my friends, and just like felt really like a rug's been pulled out under me and sort of wasn't feeling very supported. And I thought, here's this great community that I connect with and I have a lot of things in common with. Why don't I get more involved? So I reached out, asked them if I could help out, and they were very warm and welcoming. And ever since then, I've been helping them out for the past 7 months. I've been very involved, going to conventions with them, running booths, like talking to people, and now doing interviews and videos with them as well.
Yeah, it sounds like you've really found a footing in this group, and I think that's great. So what are some future projects you have in mind with Anime for Humanity?
We're working on various projects, but I'm also actually doing my own independent thing right now. I am trying to set up a media company, and it's been quite the venture and adventure, I must say. But we have few interested partners, and I have a project in mind already. So the company itself, I'm setting it up in a way that it's supposed to be a media and content company that represents the underrepresented. We want to focus on, issues of race, gender, LGBTQ, all kinds of like more controversial issues, I suppose, and really give a voice to the voiceless. And the project I have in mind is an anime and gaming docu series that I'm hoping to launch and have it be investigative, fun, comedic, but also delve into these more controversial issues and talk about like women in games, women in anime, uh, how the industry, treats them. What are some like scandals and issues that have been going on in the communities? Also talk about like LGBTQ and issues as well as race and other things. So I'm really interested, really excited to get this project off the ground.
Yeah, it sounds like quite a commitment,
It is, yeah.
but certainly I think there's a lot of people out there who wish you luck. But and myself included, I think there's a lot of issues, including, mental health and whatever, that we need to be more open about and talk about so that people who have these issues are willing to discuss them and get the help that they need.
I absolutely agree. Yeah.
So as far as your other projects go, you've also mentioned being a streamer. So what is it that really appeals to you about wanting to be a streamer?
Yeah, so I recently just set up all my streaming equipment, got a new capture card. I set up a nice chair and a TV for myself, and set up my computer for all that. And it's a lot of work. I was actually surprised at the amount of work it goes into everything. But I had a lot of help from the community, and we have a lot of really like pretty well known streamers that help us out. So I got help from them, and I streamed for the first time on the AFH channel on Twitch, and that was really fun. I just had a great time. I did it with my friend Kevin, and we played Borderlands 3, and we just laughed and we made a fool of ourselves, and it was great. People loved it, and I was told that you have like such a great personality. You're so like funny. You're so vibrant. You're so like social. Why don't you try streaming like on your own? And so I thought, okay, that sounds like a good idea. So I set up my channel, and I'm hoping to do, you know, just get wide variety of games going, and use my general personality to really build this channel, and hopefully get other people involved as well. Like I don't want to do too many streams that's just me. I want to involve others so that it could be like this like project almost. To like, yeah, like my friend Kevin, he's not very social and he doesn't get out much, and he's a great guy, and I really liked giving him the spotlight, and I think he really enjoyed it too. So I want to be able to like get all kinds of people involved with streaming, maybe even do a crazy stream with like a mother-daughter stream, for instance. Like you don't see that often, or do like a daughter and father stream, or do a stream with my little sister who's 8, playing Mario Kart, things like that. So
Yeah, I think that sounds like a lot of fun, and as a personal expert on the subject of embarrassing himself, I can definitely see why someone would find that entertaining. So why don't you tell us about some of these games that you mentioned Borderlands, but what else are you looking to stream?
ooh, so I love a lot of games. So I've been playing The Witcher 3 because I absolutely adore The Witcher fandom. That's like one of my all-time favorite fandoms as well in the gaming section. And it's funny, if the people who know me in Anime for Humanity, they're like, if you know Alika, there's two things she really likes. It's The Witcher and it's Fairy Tale. And it's pretty true. I watched the entire series 5 times, the one on Netflix. I'm going through reading the books. I'm on the third one now. I went through them really quickly, even though they're long. And I'm almost done with The Witcher 3 and its DLCs. So that tells you, like, I'm pretty into it. I like narrative games a lot, and open world games. Those are sort of my favorite. So like BioShock series, Borderlands, Fallout. Um, but I'd be looking to stream pretty much anything, and I'm willing to get suggestions from the community and try games that I don't normally do and embarrass myself. I'm pretty good at shooting games, not so good at games that require like jumping. It's a pretty well known fact that the number one thing that kills me in a game is like heights and jumping. I don't know why, but I'm terrible at it. Another thing that people that know me, that's pretty common about me, is that I'm always lost. I have the world's worst sense of direction. That is in real life and in games. So that was another thing that people found really funny about my Borderlands stream, is that I was continuously saying, Kevin, where are we supposed to go? And he's like, you are not even near the objective. You're like on the other side. So that's pretty standard. I am always lost in video games and in real life. One time somebody joked like Alika even gets lost in her own house. So it's pretty serious for me.
Have you ever actually been lost in your own house?
No, thankfully I have not. I have lost things in my house, but I have.
Well, I mean, really, who hasn't lost things in their own house? If your house is even marginally above average, you are going to lose something and not find it for a very long period of time, to say the least. But otherwise, I think you clearly have a lot of good plans, and speaking as a League of Legends fan, if you're ever playing that game, definitely let me know so I can come join you.
Sure, I will.
Good to know. But you also mentioned The Witcher 3 and generally the Witcher fandom. Speaking as somebody who knows absolutely nothing about it, and I'm sure that there's probably a good number of people listening who don't really know anything about it, you mentioned that you've watched the Netflix series about 5 times. So, curious, why don't you try to sell it to me as somebody who knows nothing about it? Why should I watch it?
Ooh. If I say Henry Cavill's butt, is that acceptable?
Uh,
uh, that
uh,
man in leather is just, fine. But jokes aside, I think that it's it's really engaging. Like I think the way they adapted it, it's definitely more relatable to the books. They've tried to stay true to the books as much as they can, and after reading the books, I saw that. But they also adapted it in a way that's more uh, receptible to the general public. Like the books get really deep, and some of the concepts are rather hard to grasp. But The Netflix series really tried to form the story in a way that is both out of context. So I guess, the way they do it is it's not chronological. So you definitely have to watch it like twice, I think, if you're not familiar with the series at all. Because the chronology is like all over the place. It jumps from the past to the present to the like way past, for instance. But I just really liked how they developed the characters and they made them unique. I don't know. And it's I'd say it's like the next best fantasy after like Game of Thrones. So it's pretty up there. The lore is so rich and so vivid. There's just so much in the world of The Witcher. There's so many different monsters and creatures and factions. So I definitely think it's worth a watch if you like fantasy and you enjoy complicated storylines, that include like different factions and different like political campaigns, for instance.
I think there's definitely something to be said about people liking the fantasy series that are complex and have interesting characters, but are also easily accessible to viewers who may not be familiar with the source material. I think that's all pretty good. Henry Cavill's butt, sure, I'm sure it's plenty nice, but it's not really something that I would be down for. But hey, if that's what other people are down for, more power to them. But yeah, so you mentioned this is something on Netflix you really like. Throwing this out there as a hypothetical, what would you think about a fairy tale live action series
Ooh,
on
see,
wherever
that
else?
that is something that I am hoping Netflix studio starts yet, because as I said, I'm developing a media company, so you can imagine the future, and that is definitely in the works. Like, I would love to create a live action fairy tale series as someone who is such a deep fan, but I would create it in a way, because this company is actually going to be AI driven and um, include a lot of fan input. um, I would want to create the series in a way that includes the fans, gets them all involved in every aspect of the process, to like the storyline, to the casting, to like final development. And that way I could, satisfy as many people as possible with bringing it to life. Because I think so far, very rarely I've seen a live action anime that I can say has been good. Like, I don't know. Maybe other people would disagree, but I've seen the Death Note one that was terrible. I saw the Full Metal Alchemist one. Oh God. Yeah. So far, I've been very disappointed with any live action anime. Um, they're getting better and better, that's for sure. Same with video games. Like the Witcher series gave me hope for an adaptation. So that's why I'm looking forward to see what is coming in the future.
As somebody who watched the Bleach live action movie and was with my friend and decided to take a shot for every moment of cringe and subsequently ended up getting very unconsciously drunk, I can certainly understand why people diss the live action anime adaptations, but considering that the technology is clearly available and evidently things like The Witcher prove that it can be done, I think it's worth a try eventually, especially if there's a market for it. And I'm curious what you said earlier about having fans consult, because that's definitely something that isn't done very often. In fact, the only place I know where it has been done in a regular way is actually American dramas. In America, they had a drama a few years ago called, well, it's been more than a few years now, but it was called Boston Legal. It was a show about a law firm, dramatic but also comedic. It had a lot of consultation with its fans, so when fans didn't like a character, they were happy to send that character off. But at the same time, I was very cautious about other shows and taking this approach, because this show had a very well-known scriptwriter behind it, somebody who was able to write upwards of 44 scripts a year, whereas the average writer is maybe writing a half a dozen at best. So I certainly would like the idea, but let's hold back a bit. I mean, fans don't always have the best ideas, to say the least. I think you would agree with that.
I do. It needs to be a balanced mix of professionalism as well as fan input. When it comes to character development and storyline, I think it requires more of a professional outlook. But when it comes to, certain takes or characters themselves, like screening and casting, you could definitely get input from fans.
Yeah, I certainly agree with that, and I think there's a lot of ways in which increasing your fans' engagement and involvement with the show is actually more beneficial because obviously word of mouth spreads, social media picks up on it. People are receptive to that stuff because they like being consulted. It feels good when you feel like your opinion has some weight in the final decision that's going on. So I would definitely be open to that idea, especially if it's something that I'm already interested in. Let's say hypothetically they do have a fairy tale series, and you mentioned that you would be okay with it being on Netflix.
Yeah, I would. I actually think that for Fairy Tale, it would make a better adaptation as a series than it would as a movie. For instance, that debacle of the Dragon Ball. I definitely think that it would do better as a series.
We don't talk about that. That's not a discussion that's allowed. But I certainly understand where you're coming from. So, what are some things you think Fairy Tale would have to take into consideration when it is working on a live action adaptation?
It would definitely have to take into consideration like timeline and how you want to become an adaptation. Like I know this may be a controversial take, but you would have to they would it would have to consider like do they want to put it in this sort of fantasy medieval timeline or are they going to adapt it for modern times? How are they going to do it? Then they would have to consider like the characters' backgrounds and stories very carefully and how they're going to bring that to life. I think there's a lot of things that need to really be taken into careful consideration to make sure, you know, the fans are happy as well as it being sort of more adaptable for like the general public as well for fan like people who are not necessarily know the fandom so that it's relatable for more people that way it can satisfy stakeholders as well so I think there has to be like a balance of how are we going to turn it into something that's believable but also stays true to the series.
I think that's a really good point. It's very hard to make believable stories about, characters with magic powers who can summon, blue haired mermaids and fight very large mountain sized demons and various other fantastical creatures, which is why I don't think modern times would be a proper setting for this series. But for the rest of the content you discussed, I definitely am in agreement with you. So as far as fairy tale goes, like you mentioned, your friend who is a fan fiction writer, is there anything you would want to do in terms of writing fairy tale fan fiction?
Ooh, so I actually did give her a premise, and so she's currently writing me a story after I gave her an idea for one. And I sort of detailed it out for her, and she's doing the the hard work for it. But as for writing one myself, I don't know. I would feel so judged, I think. I've written a lot of, blog pieces and things like that and creative pieces, but I'm worried about delving into the world of fan fiction because it could be a little toxic even. Um, but we'll see. Maybe that is something I'll try.
Yeah, certainly. Speaking as a former fan fiction writer, not fairy tale, but Pokemon, rather, I definitely think it can get toxic, but really the positive reviews are the best things that came out of it for me, aside from the fact that I made some friends along the way. And I mean, totally get it. If you don't want to do it yourself, pay someone else to do it. That's how the world works. So yeah, Alika, is there anything else you'd like to ask? Because I think I'm ready to just open this up to just more casual questions if you'd like to discuss anything or bring anything up.
uh, oh yeah, I'm open to any questions I don't have any questions myself.
Okay, well, I'd just like to ask you one last question, and then we can probably just close it out. So, who's your least favorite character in Fairy Tale? Because we didn't get to that one.
Oh, that's a tough one. I don't know if I have a least favorite character. There's some villains I wasn't a big fan of just because I don't think they were multifaceted. They were like very one dimensional sort of villains. Um, like Brain or let's see, even Mardgear. I wasn't like too big of a fan of. Even though I like the way the acting was for that character. Huh. Main characters that I don't like. Hmm. Yeah, now I can't really think of any character. Oh, I don't like that character. They're all unique in their own way, so that's why I think Fairy Tail is such a great anime. For instance, I could tell you in Dragon Ball, I'm not like the biggest fan of Goku. I just think he's like sort of always the hero, always wins, always has to take the glory, and is a terrible dad. Like people don't really realize that, but he's like a horrible father and husband. So like I think as a character, he's pretty terrible. But I still love like Dragon Ball and Dragon Ball Z and all that. But in Fairy Tale, I can't think of like a character that I would say is just too dry or boring or just not a good character.
Well, I've definitely heard that opinion about Goku spoken before, and I can't say I disagree with it. And as far as Fairy Tale villains go, I definitely also agree that there were a lot of one-dimensional Fairy Tale villains. Among them, not this is not an exhaustive list, of course, but among them being Acnologia initially, Mardgear would definitely be one. I would argue for Faust as well as Zero, the final form of Brain from the Nirvana arc. I really don't like that motivation of quote unquote I want to destroy because I want to destroy. I think it's phenomenally lazy, and villains definitely should do better than that because at the end of the day, in any fictional good versus evil story, your hero is really only as good as your villain.
Yeah, and that's why I really liked sort of the Orationses and Jalal and let's see who was a other good villain that I was just thinking about, but like it passed my mind. Uh Oh no. But anyway, they developed and they had like different Hades. They had like a background. They were, they it gave you a look into their past, their present, their future, and they developed as characters. So that's why I like them as villains, but some of the other villains they were just super one-dimensional.
Yeah, it's definitely a fair opinion that I share as well. But when it comes to it, at the end of the day, we still watched Fairy Tale, we still went through it, and we're all here as a result of that, right?
Yes.
So, anyways, I think that'll be all for today. So, Alika, I really want to thank you for taking the time out of your day to be here. I really appreciate it. I'm sure the fans who are listening to this appreciate it. This will be on Twitter. We absolutely hope that you'll keep supporting us and sharing it. And whenever Anime for Humanity needs a little bit of social media help, we're right there for you guys.
Sure. Thank you so much. We really appreciate it as well.
All right, that's the end of today's episode. Thank you, fans, for listening. You all have a great day. Goodbye.